But yeah, so my name is Joseph Miranda. There it is. Broker and owner of Miranda Executive Realty. Appreciate everybody showing up. Today we're going to be talking about, again, part of our series. We're going to be talking about this new, the new buyer commission lawsuit and how we're handling it. So if you were here for some of the last ones, we talked about how you handle it, on the buyer agent side. We're talking about how you handle it on the listing agent side. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of scripting, some things that you can say, and then also, some ways to prepare for that appointment, right? We're going to talk about, just like you do your listing presentation, we're going to talk about putting together a buyer presentation. As time goes on, we'll be creating those for you for the agents of MX Realty. Real quick, shameless plug, if you're not an agent of MX Realty, if during, after, or even right now, if you're interested in learning more about Miranda Executive Realty, what we have to offer, go ahead and scan the QR code now, and we'd love to have a confidential appointment with you where we can talk a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and how we can help you grow your business. So getting into the legal aspect of things, let's also talk about a quick disclaimer. I'm the broker and owner of Miranda Executive Realty. I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an astronaut or a pilot. I'm simply a broker of a real estate company. So these views are my opinion and my opinion only. So if you do this and it doesn't work out for you or you misunderstood, I'm sorry, but you can't sue me. If you want to sue me, you probably shouldn't be on this training anyway. So that's my disclaimer. So now you can't sue me. So what are we going to talk about here? Objection handling and scripting, right? Again, that's the purpose of this conversation here. Since we first started training this, I believe initially this law was supposed to go into effect on July 1st. Last I knew, they moved that date. They changed the date. It's now August 17th. So gives us a little bit more time to begin implementing these things, to prepare for implementation. That doesn't mean that we should wait to implement some of these strategies, these tactics. We definitely want to be implementing them now, because as we do things, we're always going to find holes. We're always going to find areas where, we need to, where we need to improve. Sometimes we build it, we fix it, realize that there's no fixing it. You got to tear it down. You got to build it again, right? That's just kind of the process of being a business owner. That's part of the process of what we do. So we have until August 17th, but we definitely need to be, doing these things now. I know my team, my agents, these are things that we're implementing. Not everything has to be mandatory, but as time goes on, things will be mandatory. So what's the plan? What's the path forward, right? What are we doing to figure these things out, right? So number one, you need to know the facts. Right, you need to know the facts of the lawsuit. We've already been over it. If you want to go back, I think our very first training on this, 2 trainings ago, we talked about the facts of the lawsuit. Again, that date I believe has changed since that training. But other than that, everything else has pretty much remained the same, right? But not only do you need to know the facts, you need to understand them. Because in order to properly explain something to somebody, you need to understand what you're explaining. If you know that when you go to your car and you put the key in the ignition, you turn it, the engine turns on, right? But if you don't understand how an internal combustion engine works, you're going to struggle to explain to somebody how it works, right? How, the oxygen and the fuel mix to create an explosion that moves the piston, that turns the engine. Right? Maybe you'll understand it at an elementary level, but unless you understand it at a higher level, it's going to be difficult to explain it to somebody else, right? Because you don't really understand. And if we don't understand it, and we can't explain it, then how can we present it, right? How can we, we can go in, we can have the best plan, we can have the best presentation, we might even be the best agent and the best choice for this customer. But if we don't understand this lawsuit, and if the customer has questions that we can't answer at a professional level, then they're going to lose confidence in us. And once they lose confidence in us, now we have to fight, and we're going to be trying to, to get them back as a customer. So what do we need to understand? Number one, we need to understand agency. You need to understand, because we already know, right? If you've been to any trainings, if you've been to anything, you already know that you need, before showing a property, you need to get an agreement signed by the buyer. You need to get this agreement signed by the buyer, and part of the agreement, I mean, you could do a showing agreement that's not an agency agreement, right? In our brokerage, at our company, we're recommending using the agency agreement because we want loyal customers. Somebody wants to come in, they want to just look at one property one time with you, maybe it's your listing, you could do a showing agreement. But in most cases, in case they don't buy that property, you want to have a long-term relationship with them. You want to have a relationship that talks about more than just one showing, so you need to have some sort of agency agreement with them, right? Besides no agency with them at all, you have single agent or transaction broker. Right here kind of talks about the difference between single agent and transaction broker. With single agent, you owe full loyalty, full confidentiality, full obedience, full disclosure, right? You owe all of this. Transaction broker, partial for everything, right? Now, because in the state of Florida, dual agency is illegal, you can't act as a single agent for both the buyer and the seller. So if you have a listing and you're a single agent on that listing and a buyer comes along, you can't represent the buyer, nor can any agent in the brokerage. So it would need to transition to transaction broker, which is why in our brokerage, we want everybody to be signing a transaction brokerage agreement. But understand your duties and obligations in whatever the agreement is that you come to with your customer. You need to understand your duties and your obligations to that customer, right? If you sign single agent and you have loose lips and you start talking about things that that affect your customer in a negative way, well, you've breached their confidentiality, right? Or if you're a single agent and you're negotiating and the agent tells you something that could be a strategic advantage to your customer, but for some reason may not benefit the transaction, and you don't disclose that fully to your customer, you're now in breach of your agency agreement. So, just make sure that you understand what your duties and what your obligations are, right? Another aspect that we need to understand, and another aspect of what I believe is going to be changing in the industry based on this lawsuit, is that now we're going to have to start doing buyer presentations, right? You need to have something prepared. For myself, we've always done buyer consultations, right? That usually consisted of bringing the buyer into an office, or doing a Zoom call, something similar to this, doing a phone call where we talk to them, what's your wants, what's your needs, what locations, what's the price range, are you pre-approved, right? But now we need to do a little bit more, right? Our buyer presentations need to really become more like what we're already doing in our listing presentations, right? You spend a lot of time, everybody always talks about the listing presentation. All of the trainings, every time somebody talks about going out and getting listings, they talk about the listing presentation. People spend a lot of time putting together a listing presentation. But the question now is, how much time do you prepare? How much time are you preparing for a buyer before you actually go on the appointment now? There needs to be some preparation that comes ahead of it. Just like we're preparing for listings, now I think we need to start spending time to prepare for our listing presentation, right? That's going to be part of what we talk about today. What we need is a buyer presentation that's at least commensurate, if not better, than your listing presentation, right? We need something that's going to compete with the listing presentation. So let's talk a little bit about a buyer presentation. This is a quick list of what we believe should go into a buyer presentation, right? This is not conclusive. This is not final. Again, where I talked about this before, we use the analogy a lot. We're building the plane while we're flying it. This is, this lawsuit, it's all new to everybody, right? Everything's new. I mean, how do we stand out? How are we going to get the buyer now that we have to get them to sign this agreement? Which, by the way, in the state of Florida has always been something that we need to do. We just didn't do it. But before we show a property, we need to get that signed. How are you going to get this signed? How are you going to earn that customer's loyalty, right? You need to talk about the benefits and advantages of the new law. We'll cover that, right? What do you do in a buyer sale? We'll cover that. A lot of people are going to be talking about a lot of the same stuff in this category, right? Your value proposition, risk mitigation, how are you going to get in front of problems for your customers? We're going to talk about the people that we work with, your reviews and testimonials, and they probably need to change a little bit, right? So we'll talk about some strategies and, kind of what we think some of these reviews and testimonials should say. There's nothing wrong with coaching your customer on how to write a good review or how to give a good testimonial for you, right? There's nothing wrong with asking them for 5-star review, right? If you say, hey, would you just take a moment to review my, to do a review of me and how this transaction was with me? They might think that you want their honest opinion. They might not think you were a 5-star agent. Do you really want them giving you 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, and somewhere on one of the public forums? No, you want to give them direction. Would you please take a moment to leave me a 5-star review? Right? Make sure that the customer knows that you want them to leave a 5-star review. We don't need to know where something fell through the cracks. What we want the public to know is everything that we did great, right? So we want to offer them some coaching on that, right? Then you want to talk about your own case studies, and you need to know statistics and research and where to find it, right? So what are the benefits for a buyer with this new law, right? With this lawsuit. So these are just a few items that we put together here. Personally, I'm excited about this lawsuit. Personally, I think that this is going to change the way that buyer's agents are perceived in the market. Right now, I think that buyer's agents have done a really, really good job of making what we do look really simple and really easy, right? When you look at, the front of the house, it looks organized, it looks clean, it looks like everything is right in place. Where, you go into the back of the house in a transaction, the transaction coordinator side, the administrative side, the title side, lender side, right? You start getting into all of the gears and what happens in a transaction, in a real estate sale, you're going to see that it's not as clean, right? I mean, we've all been through it. Usually a purchase and sale in real estate is full of drama. It's full of highs, it's full of lows, it's full of emotion, right? It's not a real simple process, right? But this new, the way that we're planning to hit this head on is going to make us better. If we now go through some sort of buyer consultation and we can now set the expectation for the customer of what they can expect, right? Of the things that we're going to be doing along the way, of the areas where we're going to be providing value to these customers, it's going to be a good thing for our industry. Change is never easy. Change is never really welcomed by most people. Most people get scared of change, but it's going to get better, right? Enhanced consumer protections, because now consumers are going to know really what our duties all along have been as a real estate agent to them. They're now going to know, right? Because of the increased transparencies of what we need to be telling them up front, right? There's going to be a lot more accountability. The market confidence, I think, is going to go way up. We're going to see a lot of agents that become rising stars, I think, just because of this, and it's really going to become more fair business practices for the consumer. Just a few things. So, what do we do in a buyer sale? You see a lot of these publications. Realtor.com is coming out with them. NAR is coming out with them. I'm sure there's plenty of other companies that are coming out with these right now. Right? We've seen these 111, your next 111 to-dos, 179 ways that your real estate agent, I think I saw inside the Realtor magazine, the Florida Realtors or whatever, they have like 2 or 3 or 4 pages, all with this, right? We do a lot of research. I've been going, I've been watching a lot of trainings and coaching, and we've been really digging a lot into this. Right. And they all talk about these checklists. And I think these companies, these organizations, they've done a great job. They've done a great job. They've compiled it, right, all the way from A to Z, right? What's the first thing that you do in a transaction, and what are the checkpoints along the way, right? All the way from the buyer presentation to looking at properties to writing the contract and all of these different things that we do. But you don't want to, you can't really just zip one of these off and hand it over. Here's 179 things that I do when you hire me. Why can't you? Because pretty much every agent's going to do that, right? So you have to think outside of the box with these lists, right? You don't need that. I don't think I've ever read all 179 of these ever in my career, right? I've never read all 111 of these ever in my career. Maybe you have. I don't know. If you have, more power to you. I don't have the time, the energy, or the willingness, maybe not even the ability to do it. But what we need to do is pull out a select few, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit farther down in the slides. These are great for grabbing ideas out of, right? And you pull out a select few. We have a saying, I took it from Tom Ferry, R&D, rip off and duplicate, right? We don't have to recreate the wheel. We're not inventing something that's never existed before, right? We're just taking something and we're going to make it ours and we're going to make it better. So, maybe talk about the top 25 things that I do for you as a buyer's agent, right? The top 25 things that I do when you hire me, right? Pick the areas where you shine. If you're a really strong negotiator, then you should be talking about that, right? If you know Broward County or Palm Beach County or Miami-Dade County better than anybody else, you should be talking about that, right? I'm a native here. When it comes to looking at homes and, in Pembroke Pines, I know this area better than anybody. I went to school here. I've worked here. My family's from here, right? I'm your go-to agent in Pembroke Pines. Now, would you say that to a buyer that's looking up in Coral Springs? Maybe not, right? Because does the Coral Springs buyer really care what you know about Pembroke Pines? Maybe not, right? So, figure out who you're talking to, right? Make your message as precise as possible, but also keep it universal, right? So, find your areas that you shine. Me personally, I pride myself on the fact that I know contracts better than most, I think, right? I know what's in the contracts. I know what the words in the contracts mean. I know, how the riders and which riders to use. I know how to go through a contract and figure out, what's missing, right? I know how to fill out a contract more than just checking the boxes and filling in the blanks, right? That's a big thing for real estate agents because I know not a lot of real estate agents actually go through the contract. Have you read the contract front to back, beginning to end? Have you read them all, right? Have you ever come across the crisp purchase contract, right? Or is it always just the as is, right? And what's the difference between the two? When you have a listing, do you know the difference between, the transaction broker listing and the single agent listing and the single agent with permission to transition to transaction broker? Do you know the difference there? Maybe not, right? I don't know. But find your areas where you shine. What are these areas out of these 111 things that you do or that need to be done? Maybe there's more. Add in more if you want. If you want to just copy the 179 ways, put your branding on it, make it your own, I'm sure that's probably fine. I don't know. You should ask NAR, but I don't think they're going to care, right, personally. But again, I don't know. But come up with what makes you shine, right? What's something else that we need to talk about during this buyer consultation? Communication. Communication is a huge area in real estate that we often overlook. Communication is something that an expectation needs to be met or needs to be set and then met, right? How often are you going to communicate with this customer? Maybe in the beginning, we're going to sit down, let's do our buyer consultation, we'll look at properties online, we'll pick out some, we'll go look at them. Well, what's after that, right? After we look at properties, are we going to go look at more, right? How often, how frequent do you want to look at properties? How often should I be sending you properties? Do you want me to send them to you, right away, the minute they show up? Do you want them to come once a week, twice a week? Do you want them to come on certain days of the week? Right? And then what days do you want to go look at properties? You get a property under contract, right? When can they expect an update from you on that property that's under contract? What if there is no update, right? When you're working, when you're in a sale, let's say it's an extended closing, 5-6 week closing for some reason, and there's going to be weeks where there's nothing going on. Everything's done. Everything's done. We're just waiting for it to come out of underwriting with the lender, or, we're waiting for, the title to do one of their searches to come back. Are we going to report that back to the customer, or are we just going to say, if you don't hear from me, just know that there's nothing going on? Personally, for me, I'd rather call the customer, I'd rather email the customer, I'd rather text the customer, whatever the means of communication is, and tell them, hey, just so you know, we're still working on this. There's just nothing going on right now. We're waiting for this file to come out of underwriting. Spoke with the lender. The lender expects it should be sometime by the middle of next week. Do you have any questions? Right? Simple as that. But communication is something that you need to set that expectation with now, right? Because they're going to want an agent that's going to be communicating with them, right? And communication is something that I think not a lot of buyers agents or a lot of agents, they have their systems. We all have our, whether you have a system or not, you have a system. If you don't have a system, your system is chaos, right? I'll call you whenever I think that I should call you. Let them know that. Hey, if you don't hear from me, then I don't think that you need to hear from me. Set that expectation up front. Or use this as an opportunity to create a communication system. Use this as an opportunity to set that expectation with them and every customer that you have, even with the listing, even with the renter, right? What about a unique value proposition? Again, this kind of goes back to the list, but maybe it's not something that's in the list, right? But ask yourself these questions, right? Do you have some specialties or expertise that your customer can benefit from, right? Because now you're going to be competing for business, because you're asking, the difference right now, you're asking this buyer to sign a commitment with you. Again, you want to sign the showing agreement, they see one house, they have no commitment to you, only to that one property, that's fine, you can do that. But in my opinion, what you want to get is a customer. You don't want to just go on a showing, hope that they buy that property, and then you don't get a customer out of it. You want to get the customer. So you want them to sign the buyer agency agreement with, probably a transaction brokerage agreement in case they buy a listing in your brokerage, then you don't have to worry about the whole transition thing, right? Get them to sign a transaction brokerage agreement. So what are your specialties and expertise that they can benefit from? Maybe you're a new agent. You might be a new agent. And if you are, then what did you do in your past careers? Maybe you were, an HR representative. Maybe, you were a server at a restaurant. Maybe you were a pilot. I don't know. Right? But there's something there. Maybe you're ex-military. Right? What are the strengths that you bring from these other areas? Maybe you're a single parent, right? Like, find these areas that you can take a strength from and apply it to your real estate career, right? Because again, not everybody's going to fail because of this new law. There's going to be a lot of people that shine and a lot of people that flourish, and the people that do are the people that are going to get in front of these things, right? Start thinking about this now. When you go on a listing presentation, you do the same thing, right? What do you do better than all of the other agents that come in on that listing presentation? What do you do better than them? There's something there, right? What separates you? What makes you better than them? Right? We'll talk about the pitfalls, right? The risk mitigation. You want to talk about the areas where, things could go wrong, or, maybe you don't need to give examples, but, you need to think to yourself, right? How do you solve these problems? What are the problems going to be, right? What if you can anticipate what's going to happen, you can get in front of it, right? What about timelines? Do you have an effective way to manage timelines from, when the deposit is due to the inspection, the financing contingencies, right? All of these things that come with the timeline, association, when they have to apply, when they're supposed to get the approval by, closing date, walkthrough, all of these things, right? There's timelines that come with every contract. And what's a problem that can occur with any of these different areas in that timeline? Get in front of it, right? Get in front of it. You're worried that, you're going to lose your deposit. I can understand that. That's a valid concern. But here's how I'm going to ensure that your deposit will never be at risk, right? That your deposit is never going to be something that's going to be on the bargaining table. And let them know when the deposit goes hard. This is the final contingency that we're about to clear. And after this point, whatever happens, you're either closing or they're going to fight for your deposit. Let them know, right? Because if you don't, it's the things that you don't tell them that become problems. You never want to hear your customer say, well, you didn't tell me that could happen, right? There's a couple of things you don't want your customer to say, and that's definitely one of them, right? The other one is you don't want back to communication. You don't want to receive that phone call from your customer asking you, what's the update, right? Send something out, right? I mean, put your dates, put your numbers together, right? Again, whether you have a system or not, you have a system. So make sure that you're getting that you're in front of these things, that you're in front of these issues, that you're in front of what's going to happen, right? Something else we've been hearing a lot about are off-market properties. So you want to have, we call it a spectrum of solutions here, right? Things that you bring to the table that other agents, may not be able to. Do you have a source for off-market properties? Because every agent that talks to them, that meets with them, they're all likely to be on the MLS, right? You'll be looking at the same properties, right? You need a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, less than $500,000 in Coconut Creek. Well, we're all looking at the same houses, right? Unless you have a system for off-market properties, right? We, in our office, one of the lead sources that we have is for sale by owners. Another lead source we have in our office are the absentee landlords, right? The people that, the landlords that live in different states, right? But what about fixer-upper homes? Are you familiar with a 203K loan? Do you have a lender that can do a 203K loan? Lenders, I think, kind of hate those loans, but it doesn't matter if they want your business, right? Do you have lenders that offer alternative financing, hard money type stuff, right? Short-term loans that can allow them to do something to the house, and they can always refinance and get into something else, right? Are you on the list for wholesalers? Are you willing, if somebody tells you that they want to live in a specific community, right? I must live in this community, but we can't find the house. Are you willing to make the phone calls? Do you know how to find those phone numbers? Would you be able to put together a postcard and you could mail that list out? Is new construction now something that we should be looking more at? I think yes. Right? With new construction, do you know when what their quarter end or their year end is? Because those are the times when they offer the incentives. Right? New construction, you'll get a better deal if you get nearer to their year end. If their year ends in July, then around that time they're gonna want to get these properties off their books. They're probably gonna offer some incentives. Do you know when that is? Do you know how to find that out? Right? Do you know where to find that out at? Right? There's a lot of things that we need to be offering our customers. There's a lot of things that we need to be doing that we're not currently doing. Why? Because we need to stand out. The other thing, when we're saying that we're going to do something, we need to make sure that we're doing it. Don't tell them you're going to direct dial or mail flyers or postcards to a company or to a neighborhood if you're not going to do it, because they're going to call you on it. Don't tell them you have a lender that that's an expert at 203K loans if you don't, right? Because they might find out the hard way that your lender that you refer to them actually is not an expert on 203K loans, and that puts a lot of things at jeopardy. Not just their deposit, but your relationship with them, any future business that you might get with them. I don't know if the answer I don't know is a good answer, but come up with a way to find these things out, right? What about your team? Do you have a team? Even if you don't have a team, you have a team, right? Do you have a mentor? Right? What about other agents in your office? They're definitely your team, right? The agents in your office are definitely your team. Well, we have a chat in WhatsApp. If if somebody has a new listing or somebody has a buyer that's looking for a specific thing, you see our agents put it in there, right? It doesn't always turn into something, but it's another resource on where you can find things, right? It's another resource where you can find support. Is your broker part of your team, right? Is your broker accessible? Can you, if you run into a problem or, whatever it is your broker going to get involved? I had an agent that called me yesterday. I think we're on video chat. She popped in, and she was telling me about a property that the main agent that was out of town. In the broker remarks, there was another name with another phone number. Didn't really know who this person was, but nobody was getting back. And she wanted to show the property today, right? So I picked up the phone, no answer. Called the other number, no answer. Sent a text message. Hey, this is Joseph Miranda, broker, with Miranda Executive Realty. We have an agent that's looking to show one of your properties. They called me back, right? He called me back, and we got it scheduled. Don't think the showing has happened yet, but I think it's still going to happen. Your broker needs to be part of your team. Every member of the office. What about the administrative team? Do you have a transaction coordinator? Do you have a full-time admin? Right? I think I said mentor already, but that's a really important one. Your mentor is part of your team because your mentor should be doing some level of shadowing, or you should be doing some level of shadowing with your mentor, right? Pull your mentor in. Have your if you don't have a mentor, you want one, if you're an MX agent, let us know, but get a mentor, right? Who else is on your team? Who else should you be talking about? What about your vendor partners, right? Who's your vendor partners, right? So you've got the sales side vendors, your lenders, title company, attorneys, insurance companies, people that you're going to bring in that you're going to recommend, right? And property inspectors on the sales side, right? If they're financing, they're going to have a lender. No matter what, there's going to be a title company involved. Does your customer want attorney representation in this sale? Likely you're going to do an inspection. You don't get to choose your appraiser, but if it's cash buyer, maybe they want to get the appraisal anyway, right? If it's a listing and you're having trouble coming up with the valuation, you should have an appraisal done on that property, right? If you can't come to a conclusion, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I think your property should sell here, and they think it should sell here, and you guys can't come to an agreement, recommend an appraisal. Should we get an appraisal? And we can see, right? Do you agree that if I pay for this appraisal, that we'll list it at or near the price that it's going to appraise at, that the appraiser recommends, right? All of these different things that are going to come into play, we now need to be that resource, right? We now need to be that person, that go-to person. I know my past customers, even my other vendor partners, if they need a vendor, they call me, right? Later on, these home buyers, these new homeowners are going to need other vendors, right? Maybe right away they did the inspection and we found out that there's some roof issues and they need a roofer. Well, do you have a roofer that you can recommend that's going to give them a fair and accurate estimate, right? And maybe now this becomes a negotiating term because a roof is a major investment, right? A roof is a significant investment if they have to replace it after closing. We need vendors. We need to have these relationships. Have some standards with your vendors. For myself personally, if I recommend somebody to one of my customers, I've probably already worked with them on a more personal level, right? Or I've known them for a very long time. We need to be able to stand behind our vendors. And if you can't stand behind your vendor, you need to let them know, hey, I just met this guy at, whatever, this networking thing. Seems like a great company. They had a lot of, really cool ideas. I've not worked with them just yet, but here's, here's the information. Let me know how it works out for you, right? You want somebody with a reputation if you can, and if not, just make sure that you warn your customers. I don't really, they seem to have a great reputation. They said a lot of really good things, but I've never worked with them, so just let me know, right? And if you refer this person to a couple of your customers and you get really good feedback, then you've got a good one, right? And you can you can kind of leverage on that person a little bit more, right? Our vendors, we expect them to go above and beyond for our customers. We have an attorney that, I have his cell phone. If one of my agents has a problem or one of my customers has a problem, I know that we can get a hold of this attorney right away, right? Unless he's in a closing or with another customer. Otherwise, he's going to answer the phone, right? When you do enough business with the same people and they're quality people, you're going to have you're going to have something that you could bring some value to the transaction for your customer, right? In this presentation, you also want to talk about your case studies, right? What's a case study? Transactions that you've done, right? Talk about how talk about some specific transactions that you've done as a buyer's agent that have that reflect your skills and ability in a real estate transaction, right? Listing price versus sold price. We have a contract that just came through in our office. The property, it's up in Boynton Beach. It was listed for $415,000. Got negotiated for $385,000. Fully furnished, fast closing, beautiful, like really, really great property. That would be a good one to use a case study for. Why? Because it's almost a 10% discount that the agent negotiated for their customer. It's like 9.2%, 9.3% discount that the agent negotiated for their customer. Should you talk to your buyer customers about this? Should you show them the results that you've achieved for your other customers? Yes, absolutely 100%. Absolutely 100%. There's no reason that you wouldn't talk about these things, right? Find 2 or 3 examples. Find one where you did great. You negotiated the heck out of that transaction. Find another one where there was a problem and you found the solution, right? Find another one where it was just the most smooth closing anybody ever had. There was literally no problems the entire way. Right? Find one that you can tie to our next slide, right? Find one of your transactions that led to a 5-star review that you got somewhere, right? You want to get reviews. Again, like I said before, you want to give some guidance, and you want to talk. You want to talk to them ahead of time about these reviews. These are reviews you can find out. These are real reviews that were written for us. And you can find these online, and these are probably from Google. I don't really know, but these are probably buyers that came along that we've worked with in the past, right? Find reviews, because that's going to lead to your credibility as an agent, right? You need to be you need to be able to show them. So take your case study. Here's this case study where everything fell apart, everything was bad. We were on the verge of of an absolute complete breakdown. Here's how it ended, and here's the review that goes along with it. How much more powerful is that, right? How much better does that look, right? What else? Statistics. Should you know your stats? Should you know local stats? Should you know what's going on in the market? Should you know, what different things are happening in real estate? I believe absolutely yes, 150%. You need to know what the heck is going on, right? Are you going to know every statistic? Are you going to know it down to, the micro level for, a neighborhood, a single family home, 3-bedroom, or whatever home is selling, in this many days at this percentage of, listed to sales price? You're probably not going to know all of that, but know the big numbers, right? How many single family homes, are currently active in your county? right? How many single family homes sold in the last month in your county? How many condos? What townhouses and villas? Right? What's the average days on market for, a single family home in your city? Do you farm an area? You should definitely know those numbers for your farm. Right? You need to know that. How many days are these properties sitting on the market? Why? Because when you know them, you can set that proper expectation. Right? Currently, there's 3 months or 6 months, whatever supply of homes for sale on the market. Right? You need to convey that message to the customer. Right? Because you are the local expert. We need to now position ourselves as the local expert by knowing your statistics. And the nice thing is they're all in one place. Right? I mean, you can go to your local association. I know Miami and Beaches, they do classes with statistics and they talk about the market and, and all of these things. They put it all together for you. Or you can just go to floridarealtors.org and you go to the top, one of the tabs at the top, and you pull up any one of these reports. Some of them you can make like flyers. You can make things that you can share on social media. Where it'll talk about a specific city, and you can put the parameters in there for what you want it to show, and you can post that to your own social media and position yourself as a local expert. Should you be using social media to position yourself as a local expert? Probably. Right? Should be doing something. Right? Inman, I know that if you're a member of Miami Association of Realtors, Inman is free. They've already paid your subscription for you. You just have to create the account with the email address that you used for Miami Association of Realtors. Free. You should use it, right? Subscribe. Let them send you emails for their headlines for the new stuff that comes in. Every once in a while, you might get something that piques your interest. Right? You have to know your market. Keeping current matters. They've got a lot of stuff that you can copy and paste, put on social media. Right? Maybe while you're at it, you read it. Right? But we need to know, we need to keep up with what's going on with research, market statistics. We need to know what's going on in the market. Customers have choices, right? I mean, they always have, but now they're going to be more discerning about who they choose because they're signing a commitment to you, right? Have you ever been on a listing appointment where, the seller says that, they want to give the opportunity to you and 3 other agents to sell that property, and whoever sells it will get a commission. Well, that's how a buyer used to be. Right? Maybe they look at more homes with one agent, but there was nothing stopping them from calling a listing agent on something and going and working with them. And then you call up, hey, I haven't heard from you in a few days. What's going on? Oh, I already got something under contract. Thanks for your hard work. Okay. Can't do that no more. Not going to happen anymore. Not legally. Right? Not with this new law, because now we need to get them to sign the agreement. And if we're going to get them to sign the agreement, just like a listing, they need to trust that we're the best option, we're the best choice for them. No question, no doubt. Right? How do we do that? How do we do it? Right? We do it with branding ourselves as the local expert. So what should you do now? Right? What are the things that you should be doing now? Number one, you should be building this presentation. Now, if you're an agent with Miranda Executive Realty, we're already building it for you. Not done, not complete, but we're building it for you. We're going to have, some areas where it can't be tweaked, where it can't be adjusted. It's just going to be one image. But then we're going to have areas where there's going to be layers on it. And you can put your own stuff, right? Your value proposition. You can put your own vendors in there, right? We're going to make these suggestions. You should put a lender here, title here, right? If you don't want those, you can just close it out, right? It's going to be editable. But the buyer presentation needs to start being built right now. We're already telling our agents that they need to be getting these agreements signed right now. If you have a buyer, if a buyer comes in to you, you need to know what to say in order to get that agreement signed. Right? Part of it's going to be this presentation. Doesn't need to be a big, long, drawn out process. I know for myself, if I was on a listing appointment and I felt like, I was 15% through the listing presentation and I felt like I could close and get the listing signed right now, I would just close it and get the listing signed right now. Right? So there's no reason, just because you have this long presentation doesn't mean you have to go through the whole thing. Right? Number 2 is a great point. Something we all should be doing no matter what. Call your current customers and see if they have any questions. They may not even know about the lawsuit, because I've done this. I've called some of my past clients, had conversations with them. Hey, do you know about this lawsuit that's coming? No, I have no idea what's going on. Right? We live in a bubble as real estate agents, right? Because we live in a world where, everybody that, around us is talking about this. So we just kind of fall into this impression that everybody knows what's going on, but they really don't. I've got plenty of customers that have no idea about this whole thing. They couldn't care less because it doesn't apply to them. They're not paying attention, right? So call your customers. It's probably, number 1, we should be keeping up with our past clients, because those should also be our future clients. They should be a referral source for us. So it's a great excuse to call them, right? Hey, John, this is Joe Miranda with MX Realty. How you doing? Been a while. Hope everything's okay. Get to the formalities. Hey, look, there's been a lot of stuff in the news talking about this, this new commission lawsuit and how it's affecting people. I was just wondering if you heard about it. No, I haven't. Oh, wow, no kidding, right? What do you say after that? Right? You inform them. You give them the update, right? And by the way, if you know anybody that's looking to buy or sell, please let me know. Do you know anybody? Maybe they do. Maybe that's where your next lead comes from. And we need to change the way we're doing open houses now. Open houses need to be different. We need to treat open houses as an opportunity to teach our buyers, as an opportunity. Maybe it's a training, right? A buyer's training, where we can offer some value at these open houses, right? You don't want to be that standoffish agent at the open house that, hey, yeah, walk around, go do your thing, right? You want to be talking to them. You want to engage them. You want to have things, you want to have some opportunities for them to learn something. Maybe you have create like a flash drive that plugs into the TV and something, kind of scrolls across, right? We'll be working on that as well for open houses. We're just going to talk about things because we need to be teaching our customers now. When these buyers come into an open house, number 1, you don't need an agreement to show the buyer a house at an open house, because you're just showing the house. You're not necessarily in any way representing them. They just walked in the door. So you don't need an agreement to show a property at an open house, right? But if they become interested in that property, then maybe that changes, right? Or definitely if they want to go look at more properties with you, then that changes. But you need to show up a little bit more at the open house. You need to take it a little bit more serious at the open house, right? So we're going to be coming up with, we're creating already ways that we're going to be adjusting and modifying the way that, we're training how to do open houses. I know we did a mega open house training maybe 3 or 4 months ago. We may do a new one in the future where we talk about, some of these new things and how they're going to affect, the way that we're managing and handling an open house, right? And just keep in mind, sales, it's a transference of energy. What does that mean? Right? What does it mean that sales is a transference of energy? It means if I feel confident in what I'm saying, if I show confidence when I'm speaking, if I understand what I'm saying and I know what I'm saying and I can explain it in a way that the customer understands it, and they feel like I'm actually teaching them something, that there's some knowledge there, right? My energy is going to be transferred over to them, right? But if I come to them and I'm not prepared and I'm not confident because I don't really know the law, they kind of understand, well, I know that you have to sign this, but I'm not really sure why, but it's the law now, so you have to sign it, right? Like that's not good energy. It's going to be no confidence, right? They're looking, your buyers are looking for somebody that they can trust, somebody that's knowledgeable, right? So this is why it's so important to put these things together, right? This is why it's so important to be prepared. Even if you don't, there's nothing wrong with being over prepared, right? And don't assume because a customer is your past client that when it comes time for them to buy and sell, they're going to just buy or sell with you. If you go on a listing where you have a past client, they bought a home, they call you, hey, we're thinking about selling. Can you come by and, let's talk about getting it sold? Don't assume that they're just going to list it with you. You need to be prepared. Now, if you're there and you're like, holy cow, I just way over prepared for this appointment because they just want to sign the paperwork, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem that you're going to run into is when you walk into a listing for a past client that wants to talk to you about selling their property, you didn't prepare for it because you thought you could just saunter into it. You thought you were their friend. You thought that this was going to be yours. And you realize that you're actually still competing for the job. And you didn't prepare. You have nothing prepared. You have nothing ready to go. I'm sure there's probably somebody on this call that this has happened to. There's at least one person, because it's me, right? I've done that, and I don't make that mistake anymore. I always show up to an appointment prepared. Don't assume that the business is just going to be yours to have. You need to be prepared. And even if you prepare this buyer presentation, maybe you never use it. But by going through the exercise of putting this buyer presentation together, it's going to internalize, right? And you're going to know these things. You're going to have a better understanding of your strengths. You'll probably even have a better understanding of your weaknesses, right? And now you can work on strengthening that weak leg, right? Because we all have our strength in the industry. I believe that everybody has greatness in them. Everybody that has a real estate license has the ability to sell real estate at a high level. There's very few that do, right? Because I think most people don't have a plan. Go through the exercise, right? Again, as an agent with MX, we're going to be putting this stuff together for you. There's going to be, some questionnaires and things that you can answer to help figure out what needs to go into this presentation. Then that'll transfer over into a presentation that you can print. You can take it somewhere. You can get it printed. You can do whatever you want. Again, we're building the plane while we're flying it. So if as we're going through this exercise, something needs to be added or something seems silly, maybe it doesn't need to be in there, let us know, right? The best feedback that we can get is from people that are actually out there doing it, right? The best feedback that we can get is from the boots on the ground, the people that are doing it. So, we're always looking for feedback on how we can do things better because everything can always be done better. I appreciate everybody. Appreciate you all showing up. I really hope this was helpful. Feel free to go back, look at our other trainings. There's plenty of stuff in there. There's, some of the scripts, the objection handlers, all of that stuff is in there. So, this all about that buyer presentation. It's a new thing. I feel very strongly that we need to understand this. I feel that it's now more than ever, it's going to be important to separate ourselves from the competition. Right. So thank you guys. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any thoughts? Anything to add to this? Did I miss anything? Probably missed a lot.
No, I think you covered it all, Joe.
Awesome.
But you are going to have you are going to start some like a checklist for the buyer presentation. So we will have something to kind of guide us. So
100%. Yeah. It's already in the works. I would say, I don't know exactly how long. I know Irene's got a lot of other stuff going on. Less than 2 weeks, we should have this out, right? Because we want to get ahead of all of these things. So that's why we're talking about all of this stuff now, why we're putting all of this together now, because we need to figure out where are the issues, right? Where's the flaws? Where's the, where does this thing break down, right? And as we're out there and we use it, right, it's going to be, real life case studies to figure out where this what works, what doesn't work. And for every agent, everybody's going to figure out a different way to present this. Everybody's going to figure out what's important to them and what's not important to them. Right? You take what you like and you leave the rest behind. right? There might be a lot of fluff and a lot of extra stuff in this presentation. If you don't like it, just don't print it, right? Or if you think it should be worded different or say something different, then let us know. If there's something that's not in there that should be added, just let us know, right? We'll add it, right? Because what works for one might work for another. What doesn't work for one might not work for another, or vice versa, right? If it works for someone, maybe it doesn't work for somebody else. I don't know, right? So again, building the plane while we're flying it. I can't say that enough. You know, it's kind of our approach for everything, right? We take what we know, we put something together. You know, we find the holes, we plug them, we fill them. You know, we try to make it work, and if it doesn't work, we'll tear it down and we'll build it up again. So finally, we get the right product, right? Final shameless plug: you scan this QR code. You know, you can find us. If you're not an MX agent, you'll receive an email. Probably going to have this QR code in there as well. You know, but I appreciate everybody that showed up. Our next Ask the Broker training is going to be on June 25th, so 2 weeks from today. We're planning on starting to talk about social media. So the goal now, coming into these trainings now, or what we're going to be looking at, and I'm not sure, it might be a 2-part series, might be a 3-part series on social media. We're going to talk about all the major ones, right? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all the big social media, TikTok, and, you know, some tips and tricks, how to implement them in your business, some do's, do nots. But then once we get through social media, we're going to talk, we're working on putting something together for AI. We have no idea what's going to come out of AI, because it's so new. It's the same thing. You know, when change happens, we need to be in front of the change, right? So you don't want to be left behind in this AI boom. You don't want to be you know, AI, it's like the internet, right? It's something that came along, and in the beginning, maybe you didn't notice that, you know, it was changing things, but it was. And then one day you woke up and the whole world was different, right? Kids no longer played outside. Now they're inside playing video games all day, right? What about Apple, the iPhone, right? Changed everything, right? You used to be, you know, you had an MP3 player and you had your cell phone, right? Apple put those together, and then they added all of the other apps, right? So these things, we don't want to fall behind on them. We have to stay in front of it. AI is something that we want to get in front of. We're already using it, whether you know it or not. AI is already being used in this office, right? AI is definitely already being used in this office. So, you know, we're going to build it up first. We're going to do social media, because social media came first, chicken or egg, right? Social media came before AI. But then after that, we're going to start talking about AI. So everybody's invited to that. You'll be receiving emails about that. Thank you, everybody, so much. Appreciate everybody showing up. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care.
Bye.